Live everywhere.
Daily Kos Radio on netrootsradio.com presents
David Walton. Kagro in the Morning Show. Now, here's David Waldman.
Hey, good morning, everybody. How you doing? It is Wednesday, August 31st, 2016. We're back on the radio. Thanks to Bill in Portland, Maine, for starting us out with another great morning tweet. Daily Kos Radio is live now. That's the purpose of this announcement. No, Kagro X, me, David Waldman. No, I didn't do anything illegal or unethical or immoral yet today, but questions do linger. Many people are saying that those questions linger. Many people are saying that Donald Trump is headed down to Mexico way, where he can be free. Maybe he did follow through on that Fifth Avenue threat after all. Hey, Don, where are you going with that gun in your hand? We know. And now he's headed to Mexico. That's the word. Although I gotta at least acknowledge that there are a few people on Twitter saying, hey, there's still a pretty good chance that this thing just doesn't come together. I mean, Donald Trump has been full of it before. And I guess, where's the information coming from? The Mexican president says he's invited him. And the way it was framed last night, Trump said he was accepting the invitation. I mean, it may very well have been extended. What we don't know is whether the president has extended this invitation in all sincerity. Does anybody know how you say sharks with frickin' lasers in Spanish? Just maybe this is something he should be looking out for. Trap door, anything like that? Alligator pit? I'm not really sure what's in store for him. And I don't know enough about Mexican politics to know whether I understand from last night's briefs, that is, the brief amount of time I spent reading about any of this nonsense, was that the president of Mexico himself is no great shakes, not comparable to Trump in that sense, but rather overcome by my Trump allergies this morning, and so the Claritin hasn't kicked in yet. Probably not enough Baileys this morning. I actually hit the Baileys this morning, knowing that there was an international incident in the offing here. I didn't put it in my cereal, but did put it in the coffee. So he's on his way to Mexico. The Mexican president, not I should say, in great shape, popularity-wise, in Mexico, or so I'm told. But I haven't asked any Mexicans. I guess I like the great mustache of truth, I should head somewhere and take some Mexican cab rides and ask people, what's up in Mexico? And then I'll find things out. But the speculation, some of the speculation I saw was also that that perhaps the rather unpopular at the moment Mexican president might be interested in confronting Donald Trump or making him look bad in an effort to boost his own popularity at home. I don't know whether that's something that will work out the way he thinks, or whether even if he were able to humiliate Donald Trump, whether that would make a difference in domestic politics in Mexico. And I don't know what kind of difference it would make in our politics here. I mean, Donald Trump does fine humiliating himself right here at home. And, of course, if he goes overseas and he's humiliated by a foreign leader, I don't know whether that certainly rallies his troops. I don't know whether that garners any sympathy for him, or I think he's the kind of guy, he's set himself up and he would have this coming. So we'll see. And, of course, all my own speculation last night that some chance that he may show up in a luchador mask, thinking that was a way to look tough in Mexico. I'm sure he's got it all prepared. Another good observation made last night is that when is he going? I didn't even get the details of exactly when he's going, but I understand that it's in a very short time frame. Like it might even be he's taken off and heading there today. I guess I'll round up some news headlines and take a look at exactly when he's supposed to go. But the point is he's going very shortly. Two, that apparently the campaign has contacted the embassy the United States Embassy in Mexico to say, so we're thinking of coming to Mexico. What do we got to do about that? And they said, oh, these things take a lot of planning, like a lot, weeks at minimum, to plan this right. Security is an issue. Just really don't think that this is going to work out. But they were informed that the report that I briefly read on Twitter, of course, and didn't put aside. But the brief report that I read said that they basically said, yeah, this probably won't work out, but that the campaign informed them that Mr. Trump would not be dissuaded because he's so resolute. And as a businessman, he doesn't really care about facts or preparation. He can just go and do this thing. So he's headed into a, for him, rather major international trip, not only with no understanding of what's going on in general, but also no advance, no prep, no security arrangements, no nothing. So I don't really know what he expects to get out of it or whether it'll even come together. I could lend a little credence to the theories that this just won't come off. It might not necessarily be that Trump was kidding or just won't show so much as he may very well be interested in going and just not be able to pull it off with the logistics. On the other hand, I'm sure in his mind, he has flown to the border on the U.S. side and done that. So all he has to do is go a couple more feet, right? I don't know. I don't even know how he's planning to do this. And of course, you can always book yourself a flight to Mexico City. And if you can do that, then you can surely get there on your private jet. The question is, I don't know what kind of meeting is set up. I'm sure if the president of Mexico wants it to happen, all you got to do is show, and maybe they'll provide the security. But I'm sure that the embassy staff in Mexico is not particularly happy. Well, that would be hilarious, though, to see him outsource his security and logistics to Mexico. I don't know whether he's going to actually he's going to be forced to do that, but I think the storyline is there for anybody who wants to perhaps mine that. I also see this morning much discussion online of, I guess, an ABC News poll. Greg, of course, is not with us today, but, I have seen polls nonetheless, despite the fact that Greg is not here. Someone has forced a poll in front of me, and I should have put this one aside, but I guess I read it quickly and said, that's not very interesting. The headlines that are going out with the tweets from this ABC News poll were basically along the lines of, look, Trump and Clinton are now equally unpopular, according to our polls. But of course, I took a look at the poll and gee whiz, that's not really true. My first inclination, of course, was to say, well, I bet that even if they are equally unpopular, which I doubt, but even if they were equally unpopular, are they equally popular? We know that that's not the case. What tends to be the case is that though their unfavorable ratings tend to be not that far apart in terms of it's not 50 points apart, but their favorability ratings are, in fact, that far apart. They're not really 50, but I think we're still talking about in the neighborhood of, well, certainly double digits. And then as it turns out, the unfavorability ratings, according to the ABC News poll, were still 7 points apart, which, I know we give a lot of leeway for margins of error and everything, but 7 points, they're not equally unpopular. Neither are they equally popular. She leads, I think perhaps only by 6 points, if I read that correctly this morning. Anyway, I guess the fact that they're not in double digits in both is supposed to be the news. And I guess now 9 points is a tie. Anything under double digits means they're statistically tied. Well, that's not particularly helpful, nor is that a particularly helpful narrative. But, it's helpful to Trump, so I guess they're perfectly happy to do that. And anything that creates drama, I guess, among the news media folks is an acceptable a narrative to draw from the ABC News poll. I'll keep an eye out for that so that I can give you the link to it in case you've ignored it to date, as I have. Today is, of course, Wednesday, and we do expect to hear from Joan McCarter later today. This despite the fact that Congress still has not come back. It is still August, technically, and as you may know from reading either Congress Matters or following along with the way Joan covers Congress daily each day, well, I guess except when they're here. Anyway, or when they're not here. September is about, mid-September is about when August ends for Congress. They take an extra week, and of course they want to be home for Labor Day because they all want to celebrate labor in America. Not. But there they go. Not back yet. Zika, etc., not waiting for them. And of course, trying to fund the government and keep it open and running while we elect a new president, probably not really gonna happen. And other political news, just to catch up with what people are gabbing about this morning. Tim Canova, I don't know how you pronounce it. Is he Canova or Canova? Or Canova, like Canada, or Canova, like, I don't know what, Supernova, has lost his primary bid to unseat Debbie Wasserman Schultz in Florida, which I think was a fairly easily predictable outcome. The polls said it, and we believe the polls religiously. Maybe not religiously, or maybe it is religiously. We're infrequent and loose practice. we respect the polls, right? I don't think anybody expected for him to come out ahead, but certainly a lot of people were crossing their fingers and hoping against hope. Other Florida news, I note with some degree, some amount of celebration, I guess. Angela Corey and Jeff Ashton is the headline. Defeated in Florida. This brought to us by Josie Duffy Rice over at, the Daily Coast, that front page of that place that we sometimes read. And by the way, still in negotiations, I guess you could call it, if you really wanted to make it sound important, with Josie to have her come on and discuss, all the stories on her beat. We thought that might make a nice Friday thing once in a while, although no reason to, nail it down for Friday. But sometimes those are the great days for the more esoteric stories or getting people ready for their weekend party chatter. And we've covered all the hot Trump news and the latest memes, etc. Josie's got a beat that lends itself to the longer-term deep story. And by negotiations, I mean every once in a while, she and Susan Gardner say, it would be a great idea to have Josie on. And I say, yes, that would be a great idea. And she says, when should I come on? And I say, pick a time or a day. Or sometimes I say, how about this day or that day? And then, but weeks go by sometimes in between our exchanges. We're very busy people, obviously. And, so I haven't nailed it down. And that's because I haven't, pursued. I need, when you invite guests on, you got to go after them and say, look, I know you're busy, but I want you to go out of your way. I need to go out of my way to make you do this. And, there's so much stuff going on, so many stories. I haven't really been able to do that the way I mean to. So anyway, the point is I'm teasing you that one day Josie will be on to discuss this stuff herself, and maybe one day what we can do, if we can make her comfortable when she comes on, maybe we can set up something more regular, and that way they feel stuck like Joan. Joan says, Wednesday. All right, well, it's fun to go on and everything, but, it's pretty easy to let the morning rush, whatever comes up in the morning, get in the way of things unless you have, a regular standing commitment. So maybe we should just throw her in there and say, hey, Josie, I posted that you were going to be on every Friday at 9:45, so you're stuck. You got to do it. And then maybe that's the trick. Anyway, in her absence, I'll read you her piece from this morning. Angela Corey and Jeff Ashton defeated in Florida. Maybe you would like to know who are Angela Corey and Jeff Ashton. Well, the answer now is nobody in particular, but by way of background, remarkable news in Jacksonville, Florida, where State Attorney Angela Corey was defeated in the Republican primary. Corey, who we called one of the nation's most vindictive prosecutors, was defeated by Melissa Nelson. Now remember, this is a Republican primary, so Nelson isn't perfect, but her approach to criminal prosecution is far more reasonable than that of Corey. Corey was most well known for her failure to convict George Zimmerman. That's it. That's the issue. I don't know if that mattered that much in the Republican primary, but who cares? She's gone. Her prosecution of Marissa Alexander, remember her, also brought her significant notoriety. She was also recently the subject of The Nation magazine's cover story. Her racially based and overly harsh prosecution made her a poster child for mass incarceration. Last week, we reported that 77 kids have been charged as adults at Corey's discretion this fiscal year alone. Fiscal year, mind you. 65 of whom, out of the 77, were black. Gee whiz. And her jurisdiction sends 75% of the young people charged as adults to prison or jail, the highest rate in the state. In the state? Okay. Well, her jurisdiction. Well, all right. By contrast, Miami-Dade County weighs in at around 12%. Unsurprisingly, Corey also loves the death penalty. Duval County, which includes Jacksonville, has only 5% of the state's population, but 25% of its death sentences, because of course it has 25% of its television cameras, and that's what she's after, I guess. In equally remarkable news, Jeff Ashton has been defeated in Orlando after just one term. That'd be Josie, covered Ashton last week after his opponent's husband was being criticized for having a criminal record. An era of change is upon us. Good. And good change. And one of the changes is I am reading Josie's stories on here. So maybe I'm doing this to lure her in. You see, we're very friendly. We love your stories. Okay. Well, I think that should be obvious and go without saying. Anyhow, let's see. A couple other fun things that we can add to the mix, and there are going to have to be a lot of them. We're going to have to wade through Pocket this morning as well as this morning's news and keep one eye on Twitter. Let's see. Where should we go? Okay, first we'll note, at least for the record, that NBC News is reporting that a Florida prosecutor, remember, we don't typically like these Florida prosecutors, so let's find out who it is. It's Miami-Dade County, so very interesting. We'll see how that one comes out. A prosecutor is probing Trump campaign CEO Stephen Bannon's voter record. We mentioned to you the other day, and maybe I need to go back into Pocket to sew this up, but we mentioned the other day the story of his particular difficulties in being found out, that he was registered at the address of a rented home previously occupied by his second ex-wife, because he's that kind of guy, I guess. I don't know. I'm sure some of them. Don't we all have second ex-wives? Some of us do. All right. Well, anyway, he does. And I have nothing to say about that. I'm not a judgmental person. All right. Well, but anyway, he was registered at the address which he had rented for his second ex-wife, but which had since been abandoned by her and was set to be demolished. I mean, there's nobody living there. Nobody. And he's registered to vote there. Well, that came up, and it caused a problem for him. And I just wanted to note that he did address the problem. He basically was pressured into it, I guess, by the negative attention. And I think the story we read was in The Guardian. And The Guardian has a follow-up note on that one that I have not yet added to the record. He went ahead and said, all right, I've got to fix this problem. How did he do it? Steve Bannon moves his Florida registration to the home of a Breitbart writer. Donald Trump's campaign CEO transfers enrollment to home of Andy Badolato after Guardian disclosed he was registered at home where he did not live. I guess there's an article that follows this headline and subheader, but haven't you got the gist? Let's see if there's anything worth mining out here. Basically, the deal is The Guardian disclosed earlier that day, and this was from last Friday. I guess probably on Thursday they had revealed it. Maybe, I don't know whether this was a same-day thing. It could have been, actually. I think he actually did it all in one day. So they broke the news that he was registered in an empty house in Florida where he didn't live and where even his ex-wife didn't live. Bannon is now registered to vote at the Florida house of Andy Badolato, who reports for Breitbart News and has worked with Bannon in the past on the production of political films. According to public records, Badolato, 52, and 2 of his adult sons are also registered to vote at the property, which he co-owns with his ex-wife. I guess she doesn't live there, but I guess they're still entangled by co-ownership of the home, and they haven't settled that yet. Or else something else weird is going on. I don't know. A spokeswoman for Bannon, a spokesman for Trump, and Badolato did not respond to emailed questions about whether Bannon lives at the single-family house, which is listed as his residence on his new voter registration record in Sarasota County. The answer, of course, is no, he doesn't live at Andy Badolato's house. He lives in the Egyptian guy's house in D.C. Okay. Alexandra Prate, I don't know, Preate, a spokeswoman for Bannon. Prate, maybe? Preet? Who cares? She's not Hope Hicks. How does Hope Hicks do it, I wonder? Not being Alexandra. Anyway, she said earlier in an email that Mr. Bannon moved to a different residence in Florida that day, apparently, repeating a statement about the issue that was previously released by Trump campaign spokesman Jason Miller. So that, another fabulous lie by all these guys. Do you live in the home? Yes. We can prove that you don't. All right, then I don't. I live in Andy Badolato's house. Same day. He moved. How is it that he is now registered over here? Well, he moved into the Badolato. Really? Did he move any things? No, he just, But remember, I guess you can get away with that, given that in Florida you can establish residency by having what was it? Somebody mentally anticipates or something living there permanently? Well, he mentally anticipates living in Andy Badolato's house. The Sarasota County Supervisor of Election advises new registrants that they must use the address of their legal residence when they register, and notes prominently that applying with untrue information, like that he lives with Andy Badolato, can result in a felony charge punishable by 5 years in prison or a fine of up to $5,000. Didn't Mark Foley have a little bit of a side issue about having himself and a bunch of 20-something guys also registered at his house? Was that him? Or was that Patrick McHenry who had that problem in North Carolina? I can't remember, but I'll have to look that one up. That rings a bell with me. Anyway, that's not Bannon. He does not have that particular issue as of yet that I know of. Bannon, the recently hired chief executive of Trump's presidential campaign, made the amendment to his registration after being contacted by The Guardian for a report published on Friday morning about his previous voting registration arrangements. So they published it Friday morning. He basically felt that he had been caught red-handed and moved by that afternoon to Andy Badolato's house, magically. The 62-year-old executive chairman of Breitbart News was, from 2014 until this week, registered to vote at 2 rented houses, really, in Miami, where his ex-wife lived. So he was registered to vote at 2 different houses? I guess in between 2014 and then, maybe that's it. Not 2 at the same time, right? Because that's an even bigger problem. The second house had been vacant for months, according to neighbors, and is due to be demolished. Bannon, who owns property in California, works predominantly in Washington and New York. Bannon, his ex-wife Diane Closey, not the same one with whom he was engaged in the custody fight over the twins. That was, what was her name, Mary Ann Picard or Mary Louise Picard? I don't remember what her middle name was. So he and Diane Closey, and the Trump campaign have not disputed that Bannon did not live in the Miami houses with Closey when given 8 separate opportunities to do so before and after publication. Batolato states on his website that he is an, quote, entrepreneur, landlord, in addition to that, I guess, senior level executive, yeah, right, venture capitalist, probably not, and seed stage investor. Sure, whatever, dude. And claims to have founded companies that reached a total of $26 billion in market capitalization. But his sons live at home. According to federal court records, he has filed for bankruptcy 4 times since 2008 because of all those billions of dollars, you see. Again, don't bother getting out of bed, everybody. Don't go to work. Don't get a job. Just say you're a senior executive, a venture capitalist, and a seed stage investor with $26 billion in market capitalization who's been bankrupt 4 times, and everybody will just leave you alone. He's also an editorial journalist and blog contributor at Breitbart News and formerly worked as an associate producer on some of Bannon's films, such as The Undefeated, a documentary about the 2008 Republican vice presidential nominee, Sarah Palin, who is stupid. I mean, her personally. The movie also about her was very stupid, but I don't know. I wanted to start with her. A ladies first, I guess. Anyhow, so with that in mind, you should also note that Steve Bannon is now under investigation for his wacky voter registration record. This, again, according to NBC News. If I can find the right place, there we are. Florida prosecutors are investigating the voter registration of Donald Trump's campaign chief. NBC News has learned. It's about time, damn it. Election officials in Miami-Dade County confirmed Tuesday that the local state attorney's office requested Stephen Bannon's voter records last week. I know that there is an investigation, but I know very little about it, said Rosie Pastrana, executive assistant to the county's election supervisor. They requested voter records for him, which is why I know there's an investigation going on. Pastrana told NBC News that there was nothing obvious in Bannon's voter record that suggested fraud to her, especially since he had not voted in Miami-Dade since registering there in April 2014. Oh. But 2 different houses in Miami-Dade? Is that what it was when we learned from the other article? There's nothing here that I see that he did wrong, she said. So probably not 2 houses at once. Just 2 different houses in Miami-Dade County since April 2014, if I've got that right. As a prosecutorial agency, we investigate all potential crimes brought to our attention, Griffith said. Oh, I've skipped a piece here. Ed Griffith, that's who we're talking about here. He's a spokesman for the Miami-Dade State Attorney, another of the spokespeople here. He said he could not confirm or deny an investigation was underway, but noted that his office could open a probe based on any question of possible violations, even inquiries from the media. As a prosecutorial agency, we investigate all potential crimes brought to our attention, Griffith said. If it was brought to our attention, we would certainly review any potential crime to see if it is indeed a crime or an administrative violation. Bannon, who lived in California for many years and still owns property there, had no immediate comment. How does Hope Hicks do it? The Trump campaign, which has made an issue of voter fraud, you could say, by suggesting November's election could be hijacked, also had no immediate comment, because Hope Hicks. To register to vote in Florida, a person must swear that they are a legal resident of the state and the county where they registered to vote. The form notes that submitting false information is a felony, punishable by up to 5 years in prison. Registrants are asked to provide a Florida driver's license or ID number on the last 4 digits of their social security number, or those digits. In Bannon's case, Pastrana said he submitted his social security data. The State Department of Highway Safety and Motor Vehicles said Bannon does not have a Florida license or ID. How the hell will he vote? That's a good question. What sort of ID will he have to produce at the polls? Now, if he hasn't voted, he hasn't violated that law yet, and I don't even know whether it was in effect yet, but I wonder how he planned to vote. Of course, absentee is the answer, where you don't have to provide ID, which is why absentee balloting is where the actual fraud goes on. Gee whiz. What a surprise. Bannon was named CEO of the Trump campaign during a shakeup in mid-August. We know all about this, I guess. His voter registration and residency drew scrutiny last week when the Guardian newspaper reported he was registered at a home in Miami that he rented for his ex-wife. Conservative writer and Trump supporter A.J. Delgado told NBC News she visited Bannon there, but an owner of the home told reporters it had been empty for months. That's a separate question. So A.J. Delgado, trying to help him out, says, yeah, I visited Bannon at this house, and everybody else says, nah, hasn't been anybody here for months. Could have been before. They could be messed up about the time, but interesting. I wonder if saying that, like if they actually made a case against him, could they make A.J. Delgado an accessory if it turns out she was lying about that? About a week before the Guardian report, Bannon sent in a change of registration form, a week before the report, listing a new address in Sarasota County, but it was not fully processed until after the story appeared. Oh, okay, interesting. That actually, favors him a little bit, I guess. The new registration is for a home in Nokomis, Nokomis, that public records show is owned by Andy Badolato, a writer for Breitbart News, the conservative website where Bannon is chairman. Badolato, who is a producer of conservative documentaries for Bannon, did not respond to requests for comment. How does he do it? Kurt Bardella, a former Breitbart spokesman, told NBC News that Bannon, quote, spent a lot of time in Florida. Sleeping on the beach, probably, and often stayed in Washington. Oh, gee, did he? Often? As well, at a property affiliated with the website, but actually owned by an Egyptian politician. I guess. They didn't mention that. Pastrana said voters are supposed to register at their primary residence, but don't have to be there full time. Election supervisors don't verify the addresses listed on the registration form, she said. Why not? Why don't we have this stuff? Well, for black people they do. They send you letters. Just trying to verify. That's what all these voter roll purges have been about. For black people, they tend to want to verify your address. For white people, whatever. Bannon's appointment as chief executive of the Trump campaign has brought attention to his personal history, including a fractious second marriage, which is even more fractious perhaps than the first. As NBC News reported last week, Bannon was charged... Oh, this is funny. They're talking about his fractious second marriage in terms of his first marriage. As NBC News reported last week, Bannon was charged with a 1996 misdemeanor domestic violence case after his then-wife accused him of grabbing her during a fight. That was his fractious first marriage. The charges were dismissed after prosecutors couldn't locate the wife to testify, and she later said in divorce papers that Bannon and his lawyer had made her leave town, allegations that Bannon's lawyer denied. In the same divorce case, the wife also claimed Bannon made anti-Semitic comments during an argument over which private school their daughters would attend. Bannon denied it. And that doesn't even get to the fractiousness, allegedly, of his second marriage, which was to someone completely different. NBC News, I just thought I'd point that one out for you. All right. Pocket is chock full of stuff, and we'll see how many more of these things we can get on the record just to keep you informed before we speak with Joan. Let's see. That's a Joan story. I'm going to hold on to that one until she gets here. You might like this one. Here's one we'll have to pick apart. The Hill, because both sides, has published an op-ed here from a contributor. I don't know whether this guy has ever contributed before. Pratik. I'm sorry. No, it's not Patrick. It's Pratik, Pratik. Chogule. I'm going to just admit I probably murdered that one. Chougule. And I don't know who that is, or where that guy came from, career-wise. But it's claimed down at the bottom that he is the former policy director to the presidential campaigns of, put that in scare quotes, presidential campaign of Governor Mike Huckabee and Donald Trump. Now, Donald Trump, I understand, survived the primary. What's the word for the kind of election we were just having? The primaries, and became the nominee. You may have heard about this. and is in fact running for president right now, which raises a curious question about being the former policy coordinator to Mike Huckabee, who generally speaking had no policy and lost, but also a former policy coordinator to Donald Trump. Donald Trump is still running, but this guy's a former. And even if he's still there, even if that's just poorly worded and he's a former policy coordinator to Mike Huckabee and current policy coordinator to Donald Trump, that's almost worse because Donald Trump doesn't have any policies to coordinate. So he's not got two to rub together, even if he wanted to try to coordinate them. And if he did, they would be so ridiculous that one might say, who's the policy coordinator for that guy? He must be the biggest idiot in the world. And in fact, I don't know whether he is, but he is named Pratik Chogule, or Chogule. Anybody? Anybody have any idea? He's also a former State Department political appointee in the George W. Bush administration, which I guess is like a slightly more prestigious credit than the other two ridiculous things. But it all goes downhill from there, and that's at the bottom. Okay, here is the headline. Hillary's alt-right smear will backfire. You remember the speech in which she said, so there's this thing called the alt-right, and here are some facts about it. That was the smear he's talking about. Now, how will that backfire? I was curious. But it's not really about how it'll backfire. It's about how it was all a big lie. Basically, this was really intriguing. There are two ways, this guy says, to become relevant as a conservative. The difficult path is to inspire enough Americans with the force of great ideas. The easier option is to incite the right enemies. Last Thursday, Hillary Clinton gave a small group of left-wing inspired cranks, trolls, and outcast bloggers the easier path towards the latter. It's actually poorly constructed. The latter is the easier path. She gave them an easier path towards the easier path, I guess. Okay. In a speech in Reno, just to watch him die, Clinton took aim at an emerging racist ideology known as the alt-right. According to Clinton, this fringe element has effectively taken over the Republican Party. She's correct about that, of course. But let me just go back and let you know I didn't read that wrong. He says, this guy says, last Thursday Clinton gave a small group of left-wing inspired cranks, trolls, and outcast bloggers the easier path towards the latter. In other words, he wants you to know that the alt-right is really left-wing liberals. There you have it. But just as the Nazis were leftists, he wants you to know that now the alt-right are in fact leftists, and you have only yourselves to blame. By the way, the Holocaust is a hoax, as is global warming, I'm sure, and we can all go home now. So there is no alt-right. It's all a bunch of leftists doing a thing. I don't know whether it's parody, or they're trying to frame people on the right, or I don't know. I've skimmed through this. This does not offer any explanation. But anyway, then he, after saying, according to Clinton, this fringe element has effectively taken over the Republican Party, he says, this is news to me. I can imagine it might be news to you, but I don't think it really is. Over the past year, I served as the policy coordinator to both the Huckabee and Trump presidential campaigns. Not once did I hear the term alt-right on either campaign. Now, you might have had your head up your ass. That's possible. Or perhaps more to the point, it's a fairly new designation in terms of breaking out of the minor circle that actually used it to describe themselves. But even if they didn't use that term, or it never emerged and never was uttered in either presidential campaign, I am not sure how that would matter. Yes, he says, I suppose it's possible, as Clinton claims, that my colleagues secretly, quote, traffic in dark conspiracy theories drawn from the far, dark reaches of the internet. But at least as far as I can tell, the inspiration behind our campaign's policy work comes from more familiar sources, think tanks like the Heritage Foundation, policy staffs in Congress, and center-right publications where conservative wonks tend to publish. Center-right publications like Breitbart. Last month, in the week before the Republican National Convention, for example, I represented the Trump campaign in Cleveland during GOP Committee Week, when delegates gathered from around the country to hammer out the 2016 official party platform. I saw plenty of familiar faces, social conservatives from long-standing evangelical organizations, former foreign policy officials from the Bush administration, and donors who finance their churn of white papers. Now, which one of those guys was hired as the new CEO of the Trump campaign? None of them. It was actually the alt-right chieftain, Steve Bannon. But hey, Pratik says no. Clinton might call it conservatism as we have known it. And you know what? There you have a point. It's not that alt. It's the same thing. Alt-right doesn't really hold different beliefs than the regular right. They're just ruder about it. They take a particular glee in being rude and abusive about their views. The views are the same. They just like to be more abusive about it. And that's probably why you haven't heard much about it. Since leaving the campaign, why? One might ask. I've been spending most of my time analyzing political prediction markets like Betfair and PredictIt. So my interest in the alt-right isn't particularly ideological. As a forecaster, I'm more concerned with whether the alt-right will shape political outcomes in a meaningful way. Of course, you will discover nothing about it, because I just told you, it's all the same policy-wise. It's just about being ruder about it. And that, you might find, would affect the betting markets. Clinton described the alt-right as a loose but organized movement. Loose sounds about right, but organized? To research the alt-right, I started with a Reddit directory of self-described alt-right sources. From there, it took me all weekend to dig through hundreds of links, many broken, outdated, or otherwise indecipherable, before I could identify the alt-right's more coherent thinkers. By the way, a weekend exploration of who is ISIS and how are they organized would give you pretty much the same findings. But you're afraid of those guys, and they're the biggest threat in the world, because what? Because you want them to be. And alt-right, well, so far they haven't blown anything up. We do have that as a difference. There is no alt-right manifesto, as far as I can tell. They're leaderless, man. But three main ideas seem to unite the movement. Okay. I don't even know how far we want to read into what he thinks the alt-right is all about. I'll give you the quick bullet points. 1, exasperation with establishment conservatism. That's clearly true. 2, opposition to political correctness. 3, fear about the direction of Western civilization. Now, for all of this stuff, there's more. There's a paragraph about each one of them. For all these reasons, he says, the alt-right considers Donald Trump to be a fellow traveler and an imperfect messenger for its ideas. Meanwhile, Hillary Clinton, as a former Goldwater girl, reformed feminist, and globe-trotting diplomat who barely fended off a populist insurrection in her own party, except it was actually not close, is uniquely situated to answer the alt-right. Who says? He says. Can America retain its national identity in a multicultural society? Can the country reap the rewards of globalization without fanning a dangerous backlash from those left behind? How would Clinton, as the first female president, address the crisis of family breakdown that has only worsened since she published It Takes a Village 30 years ago? That's the problem. Yes. Clinton instead chose to smear the alt-right with the same tropes. Which it doesn't exist, but she smeared it with the same tropes that it once wielded against today's conservative establishment. Perhaps, once a passing fad, Clinton may have turned the alt-right into a genuine force. I doubt that she was the one behind that, but okay. Meanwhile, any support that you could see in any of that, any support whatsoever for the assertion that it is in fact a bunch of left-wing inspired cranks who run, I guess if you really wanted to try and give a construction that made some sense to that, you could say they're right-wingers who take inspiration from the left wing somehow, except that they don't. So one of the dumber analyses I've seen there, but I just wanted to put that on the record that people who are trying to have others see them as voices of mainstream conservatism are busying themselves trying to deny that there is an alt-right at all. Frankly, I suspect that he's a little more alt-right himself than he's willing to admit, but that's just a guess. Just wanted to make you aware of the fact that there's a movement on to deny that the alt-right even exists. What are you talking about? You're chasing ghosts, you conspiracy theorist. It's a good way of trying to undermine the whole thing. Let's see. Noting for the record, this is not news to any of you, but what I'm noting here is the source of this piece, People magazine. I think it's important to note that you'll have publications like People who are reaching some ordinarily rather apolitical readers, I think, with this story. And you know, People magazine is actually something that I think Donald Trump himself reads a lot of. This, of course, will not be news to Donald Trump, nor will he care about it, and this will just make him angry about People magazine. But I've seen People magazine open on his desk in some of the photos he's circulated of his office in Trump Tower, so I know he reads it. Trump's trail of unpaid bills. Hundreds say the Donald stiffed them. By the way, he's out there taking stuff from people and then not paying, whereas the Clinton Foundation is out there giving stuff to people, like actually doing things and making lives better. Shut that one down, but let him continue to run for president and also run this Trump organization that specializes in siphoning dollars out of going concerns, turning viable businesses into failures, and not paying small businessmen, contractors, and vendors. Okay, that's the right way to go. Dave Quinn is the writer here, and I'll give you a flavor of what he's telling the what I think is a typically rather apolitical and maybe even short attention span crowd. And that's not a criticism by itself. I have a short attention span. But an apolitical short attention span is a different kind. So what are they going to read this week about Donald Trump? Hundreds of former employees of Donald Trump say they're still waiting to be paid. The USA Today network, another short attention span, more or less apolitical organization, it's the most apolitical of the newspapers, I think, the major dailies, claims that Trump has been involved in more than 3,500 lawsuits. I've seen the number. People magazine readers probably haven't. Over the past 3 decades, many involving plumbers, carpenters, waiters, bartenders, dishwashers, painters, real estate brokers, and lawyers who claim, that's an odd one to throw in there, who claim presumptive Republican presidential nominee. That's funny. So I guess this is an old article. This is actually, June 10th. Interesting. I guess it was recently recirculated on Twitter, which speaks to the, not the apolitical nature, but per se, but the, apolitical folks or reluctant political participants tend to be a couple weeks behind on these things. It's good to see that they're getting this news eventually. But the presumptive Republican nominee then never fully paid them for their work. According to U.S. Department of Labor data, the network found, that's the USA Today network, that since 2005, Trump's companies were cited for 24 violations of the Fair Labor Standards Act for failing to pay minimum wage or overtime. Those citations were resolved, with the companies agreeing to pay back wages. The network found 60 lawsuits and more than 200 mechanics liens, some dating back to the 1980s. One lien claimed that 253 subcontractors weren't paid in full or on time for Trump's Taj Mahal Casino in Atlantic City, New Jersey. Another suit settled last month granted 48 servers at Trump's National Doral Miami Golf Resort back pay for putting in 20-hour days during a 10-day Passover event. Holy moly. While the 69-year-old businessman and his companies have prevailed or settled in many missing payment legal disputes, the network says the claims raise enough questions about Trump's judgment as a businessman and as a potential commander-in-chief to merit reporting. I just dropped the ball at the end of that quote. Anyway, in response to the claims, Trump told the network that if he's not happy with the quality of the work, he won't pay the worker in full. Only that's not the way you're supposed to do things. Let's say that they do a job that's not good, or a job they didn't finish, or a job that was way late. I'll deduct from their contract, absolutely, Trump said. That's what the country should be doing. Of course, you could just do that and then say the work was bad, even if it wasn't. The statement was in stark contrast to the words Trump said during his election night victory speech on Tuesday, I guess way back when. No matter who you are, we're going to protect your job, Trump said Tuesday, back at the convention. Or I guess his election speech, one of the victory speeches after one of the late primaries is what they're referring to. Because let me tell you, our jobs are being stripped from our country like we're babies. What a line. Later in the piece, Trump stood by his words despite the large number of lawsuits he's endured. We pay everybody what they're supposed to be paid, and we pay everybody on time. No, you don't. That's the biggest lie you ever told. And we employ thousands and thousands of people, okay? His daughter, Ivanka Trump, who is the executive vice president of development and acquisitions at the Trump Organization, added that the disputes shouldn't tarnish Trump's success rate. That gets tarnished all by itself, in that it's a failure rate. We have hundreds of millions of dollars of construction projects underway, she said, and we have, for the most part, exceptional contractors on them who get paid and get paid quickly. It would be irresponsible if my father paid contractors who did lousy work, and he doesn't do that. This isn't the first time Trump's business practices have come under fire. Presumptive Democratic presidential nominee Hillary Clinton recently weighed in on the controversy surrounding the businessman's now defunct school. He is trying to scam America the way he scammed all those people at Trump University, she said. His own employees testified Trump U, which is a fake anyway, was a fraudulent scheme where Donald Trump enriched himself at the expense of hardworking people. Well, that part you all knew. But it's well worth noting that the People magazine crowd is getting that news too. And now you're up to speed with our People readers. Get it? Now we know where they stand. Okay. Let's see. There's more news about Bannon. The Daily News reported yesterday, in addition to, the domestic violence issues, the anti-Semitic issues, the weird voter registration issues, there's one more thing of which you need to be aware. The Daily News reports Trump campaign CEO Steve Bannon was accused of sexual harassment toward biosphere co-workers in the 1990s. That's the part that really made me laugh. What is Steve Bannon, alt-right hero, doing at the biosphere? Imagine that. That's pretty weird. Christopher Brennan is the writer here for the New York Daily News. Among his numerous legal problems from the past, Donald Trump's new campaign CEO was accused of sexual harassment towards a coworker at an Arizona research company. That sounds a lot more like Bannon. Arizona research company. Okay. I mean, whatever. I don't have really clear memories of what the biosphere was really technically all about and what it is that they were trying to do there. I just remember it as a kind of a weird, loopy looking joke, but maybe it was super serious. Maybe it wasn't. I don't know. But certainly the alt-right doesn't want to give them a second thought. Biosphere. Steve Bannon, the head of Breitbart News, who has stepped down to assist the GOP nominee's campaign. Has he stepped down? Well, we'll find out. It was named in a suit by a Biosphere 2 worker in 1994. Margaret Augustine alleged that the future Trumpite and his coworker Martin Bowen, B-O-W-E-N, repeatedly made lewd remarks, according to court papers recently reported by BuzzFeed. Lewd remarks, walking around the biosphere. Hey, baby, show us your... I mean, what... what call... You know what makes... I will admit that the biosphere is pretty hot. You know what I mean? I mean, not just hot and humid like it was inside, but I mean, it's it can really stir some emotions. Can you imagine this hot chat in the biosphere? Okay, that was recently reported by BuzzFeed apparently, but forget that. Why click over there? I think one story will be enough for that one. Both the sexual harassment claims and a countersuit alleging that she stole money from the company. That's a good twist. Which tried to create a space colony-like dome in a city called Oracle, were settled. Augustine, a former boss at the company, said that Bannon would talk about the size of women's breasts. Why, they're as big as the biosphere itself, he might have commented. I don't know. And once grabbed her wrist while dancing, okay, and told her, now here we get into sexual harassment, quote, that once I'd done it with him, I'd never want to do it with anyone else, according to BuzzFeed. Now, I know that doesn't track quite right for me. I'm sure that that's something he said, and of course the intention being, well, you would be, you won't want anyone else. But, of course, reading it now, yeah, once you've had sex with me, you won't want sex with anyone ever. So, there you go. That's a good line there, Steve. I guess it worked. Biosphere's billionaire backer, Edward Bass, that's pretty good. Biosphere's billionaire backer, Bass, was the principal defendant in Augustine's suit, which also alleged libel, slander, and breach of contract, and was filed after she was removed from the company. Lots of drama in the Biosphere. Bannon, then known as a Beverly Hills investment banker, was brought into the company as interim CEO. So he's got a lot of CEO experience. According to the Los Angeles Times, you imagine they bring in a interim CEO to fix problems at the company and he's sexually harassing you? What a nightmare. Anyway, that according to the Los Angeles Times, which said that Biosphere was, quote, a nightmare of legal wrangles and bitter feuds. Some oddball people, I guess, probably working on that one. The Augustine lawsuit was not the first to bring up details about wrongdoing or criminal conduct by Bannon, who has left a long trail of legal documents through the years. Now, I know rich guys leave a lot of trails through the courtrooms and all, but this combination of Bannon and Trump, these guys are in court, I think, a rather unusual amount, but maybe I'm wrong. A federal lawsuit in 2005 also alleged that the future Breitbart leader fired an employee suffering from, I heard this one yesterday, you probably did too, suffering from multiple sclerosis who had just given birth because she became a mother. In other words, she wanted maternity leave and he said, get the hell out of here. Soon after he was named Trump's campaign chief, it was revealed that he faced domestic violence charges for allegedly attacking his wife. That would be Mary Louise Picard, who would ultimately divorce Bannon and say in 2007 court papers that her husband did not want their daughters to go to an elite Los Angeles school because it had many Jewish students. So, it piles up. It continues for Bannon. I don't know what difference it's going to make. I just thought you'd want to be aware. Okay. How about this one over here? We'll squeeze one more in. I like this idea. It makes for an interesting story. Did you know that that creepy guy, Anthony Weiner, was importing young teenage and sometimes underage teenage models into the country and shacking them up at Divey Apartments in the East Village, where he kept them in between illegal modeling gigs. Oh, I'm sorry. Wait a minute. Did I say that was Anthony Weiner, that creepy, weirdo sexual predator? Although, I don't know. Is he a sexual predator? I guess he is, sort of. I don't know who he's texting. Maybe he's consensually sexting. So, no. Maybe he's not a predator. I don't remember the circumstances of his sexting. I don't want to know about that. But, okay. Creepy weirdo? Yeah, okay. I'll go along with that. Even though I'm sure there's some fine, upstanding weirdo sexters out there. Who keep things compartmentalized better than Anthony does. It wasn't weirdo Anthony Weiner who was importing underage models illegally and stashing them in an East Village apartment. It was Donald Trump. But I did think I might get your interest if I said it was Anthony Weiner. But again, it's Donald Trump, so I guess not very interesting. Nothing to see here. Mother Jones has that story. But I'll tell you what, I'll pocket that one for now because Joan is arriving here, although maybe she has an interest in hearing about this story too. But long story short, Mother Jones has that story. I will share it with you in the afternoon post. And bottom line, the firmly established line that Mother Jones will cop to anyway. Former models for Donald Trump's agency say they violated immigration rules and worked illegally, as Melania did. Why she's not being allowed to comment on this, I have no idea. He needs to sit down with Kaiser Khan. They need to work things out about what their wives are going to be allowed to say. But no one has heard from Melania about this one. Sweatshop conditions alleged by some of the then young girls who lived in the Trump agency apartment in the East Village. But again, no complaints of sweatshop conditions from the foreign model imported by Donald Trump's modeling agency that he married. She's got nothing bad to say about it. So, okay, she's got nothing to say at all, as it turns out. Someone who does, though, is Joan McCarter. Hi, Joan. How you doing?
I'm fine.
You're not a model with his agency.
I don't want to talk about that creepy stuff.
Yeah, you don't? Or you do? No. I didn't. No, okay. Well, I can believe that. It's just a little bit weird. I'm sure he totally didn't secretly videotape them, like he also didn't do at Mar-a-Lago. So
see, you're talking about it.
I'm telling you that I'm not going to. How does Hope Hicks do it? Same way I do. I should be the spokesperson for. I could have done this. I really don't know why it's not me, except I hate him. But that doesn't seem to matter either. Anyway, there are real things to talk about, and one of the stories that I put aside for today is one of yours.
It's not that it's not a real thing.
Right.
It's just that, there are other
I don't know.
things.
Maybe it isn't. I don't know. But there are many things that are wrong with that guy, and I'll talk about them later.
I think it would be good for People magazine.
Yeah. They seem to be interested in that one. Right now, they're only just now catching up.
Not that there's anything wrong with People magazine.
Not at all.
But I think it would be a good way to get people sort of, and not that, now I'm going to get myself in trouble.
All right.
It's a hook for regular readers of People magazine to perhaps become. Not that regular readers of People magazine aren't necessarily following politics.
Right.
But it's not a population you generally think of as being deeply politically involved.
I think they're largely apolitical, but...
And here's an opportunity for them to be sort of let in.
Yeah. Well, they have to catch... They eventually... They'll vote and everything.
Yeah.
And, so they want to be caught up on these things. And I thought one of the earlier stories I read was about, I was mostly interested in that finally People magazine was getting around to telling their readers that Donald Trump has never paid his contractors on most of his projects. But it turns out that they actually shared that with them in June, and I missed it because I don't read People magazine, so who's out of the loop? Hey, it turns out. But...
One of our writers, Laura, is a regular People reader.
Ah.
And she's been keeping us up to date on the political things that they're talking about. They're getting quite political.
That's
along
good.
With Cosmopolitan.
Ah, yes. I'm always pleased to see that. And I know that, wasn't it Katie Tur's story? Wasn't it published in Marie Claire?
Yes.
I think. This is a great trend. I don't know if I should ask Laura whether she's always been a People reader or just she's in the, if she's visiting the doctor. That's what's in the.
No, she's a regular reader.
Okay, like a subscriber? Probably not. Nobody subscribes anymore. I guess you just read it online. But
yeah,
maybe. I don't know.
So
it's good stuff.
I apologize if anybody.
I don't think we
reads People magazine. Thought I was dissing them. I did not intend.
Yeah, I'm sorry if anybody reads People magazine too.
Yeah.
We'll just leave it there. It's a fine publication, and after all, it had all the good stuff about Marla Maples recently was in there. That's how I saw that Donald Trump reads People magazine. I saw it open on his desk at one point, open to a Marla Maples bikini picture from the 80s. That was when he was eating his taco bowl.
Nothing weird about that.
No, not stalky or anything. Just a guy who likes to import models and keep them in apartments. I don't know.
Yeah,
and marry
there
them
we go again. All right, what were you going to ask me about?
Oh, right. Yeah, see, I forgot. You didn't want to talk about the models who are being imported, so I won't mention those imported models anymore. But I had one of your stories set aside in pocket, and I just before opening it, I said, "Oh wait, I think this is one of Joan's, so we'll wait until she gets here." It is the Republican House Maniacs plot the political ruin of Paul Ryan.
I thought it might be that one
again. What's going on, Joan?
Paul Ryan isn't such a great leader.
What?
Or, perhaps I'm being unfair to Paul Ryan. Perhaps he's a great leader who just has crappy followers.
That could be, right?
Would-be followers.
The roster is just not, just hasn't got a quality lineup.
No.
Okay.
At all. So the Freedom Caucus guys have decided that plotting a coup against Paul Ryan is the best way to get their way in the new session. To get some rules changes that are very good for the Freedom Caucus guys.
It's the most familiar of their plots.
Yes.
Okay.
And it's taken less than a year for them to get there with Paul Ryan.
Okay. Well, that's how they got him in the first, how they got rid of Boehner was, we're going to have a coup. And they got this guy, and everybody knows that they weren't particularly happy with him, but then they eventually said, we don't have a real alternative. I mean, we offered one up and nobody wanted them. Okay, so now, so are we talking about right away, or you're saying rules changes like at the beginning of next Congress?
At the beginning of next Congress.
Okay. So
they are plotting to band together to deny him a vote on the first ballot.
Oh, to deny him the speakership in the formal opening of the...
Right. They realize that they don't have enough votes probably to do that. But they believe that doing that would be so politically damaging to him that he will do anything to prevent them from doing that.
I see.
So he'll give in to them on all of their proposed rules changes.
Now,
at least I think that might be over rationalizing their strategy.
Maybe, although it's familiar enough. I mean, that, as I recall, was the one that didn't work for them when they did it to Boehner at the beginning of the last Congress, nor did it work for them when they tried to do it to Ryan when Boehner resigned. But, as they say, the third time is a charm, and maybe it'll work this time?
That's the idea.
Wow.
That's apparently the idea. And I think I wrote earlier about a split happening between the Freedom Caucus and the Republican Study Committee, which is kind of Freedom Caucus-y kind of guys, but those who have a little bit more respect for the institution, apparently. It's hard to know where these people fall out ideologically, because they're both just insanely, ridiculously, extremely conservative.
Yeah.
But there are some members of leadership in the Republican Study Committee who don't want to go along with all of these kinds of tactics, so we're having a schism between the two groups. Just more fun for Paul Ryan.
Yeah. Well, it is an amazing lineup of affinity groups these days among the Republican conference. Wherein, by the way, the Club for Growth is considered old line and stodgy conservative. They used to, of course, be what I guess would have been the alt-right of their day.
Right.
And now they've been alt-righted right out. I mean, the Tea Party caucus came and went.
I mean, the Club for Growth is seeing that the only way it can really become relevant again is to work with the Freedom Caucus.
That may be so.
So they are indeed endorsing Freedom Caucus people.
Well, okay.
Yeah.
Why not? I mean, they've lost, and so I suppose it's a can't beat 'em, join 'em sort of effort. It's just that, I mean, the actual, what would we say, traditionalist Republican conservative core used to view the Club for Growth as those annoying brats who just don't know how to play this game right.
Yep.
Years ago, and now they've just been outdone. I guess that torch was passed to the Tea Party caucus briefly, although that was kind of a fake thing anyway, and it was mostly old line Republicans trying to jump on the Tea Party bandwagon. And then the Tea Party people themselves began to join that study group, but then they decided they needed their own thing, and the Freedom Caucus grew out of that, which is just one of the dumber names out there. But everyone loves freedom. How do you fight that? And all right, so this time they're really going to do it. Not.
This time they're really going to do it. Not. But I did leave out the best quote in that story, and I apologize for it, because it would have been much more fun in the story. How can you have a gang, says one of the members, and have one in your gang get stabbed and do nothing? You've got to stab somebody. Or else, what's the point of having a gang?
That is disturbing. What's the point of having a gang unless you stab somebody or
You've got to stab somebody, or else what's the point of having a gang?
Well, I suppose he might have meant you've got to stab somebody if they stab one of your guys. Otherwise, what's the point of having a gang? And I hope it wasn't just, well, the reason I have a gang is I want to stab somebody, and you can only do it if you're in a gang. So let's all, Well,
yeah.
Okay, who?
Somehow the guy who got stabbed, they say, was Tim Holzkamp.
But
who lost his primary in Kansas to a as it turns out, a not extreme Republican.
So that's the stabbing.
So they think that Republican establishment Paul Ryan stabbed Holzkamp, so they've got to come stab him back, or else they're not a real gang.
Though Paul Ryan, as far as I know, didn't vote in Kansas at all.
I believe he did not.
Maybe they should stab all of the Republicans in Kansas.
Yeah.
Or at least in that district. And I'm not, endorsing
his primary opponent.
Right. Yeah, you could stab that guy. That would be the most obvious target. But I guess they want to go up higher. Okay, so they're going to... Well, what they're really going to do is stab, what's his name, Dan Webster, because he's going to end up putting himself up there again. Is he still in Congress? I don't even know. And I assume he's coming back, and I assume he'll put himself forward for Speaker again, and maybe he'll get double digits of votes or something. I don't know. We'll see how this one works out. Although I wouldn't be surprised if some other members of the Freedom Caucus said, we'd like to maybe try that. I want to be the candidate for Speaker instead of you. You keep losing.
My bet's going to be Raul Labrador.
Yeah? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's exciting for Idaho.
Raul Labrador doesn't care about Idaho. For a while, there was a lot of speculation that he hated D.C. He was going to come back and be governor, run for governor. But it seems that he's got visions of grandeur in the Capitol. It seems like Raul Labrador really does see himself as the leader of a new movement. He'll have to talk to Donald Trump about that.
Okay.
And that he's in line to be Speaker. From the latest interviews I've seen with him, and his total lack of interest in doing anything, having anything to do with Idaho. It looks to me like that's the plan.
Well, it's an ambition. That's nice. And, I mean, Paul Ryan should never have been Speaker either, so I suppose anything's possible now.
It is sort of gratifying to think that nobody wants Paul Ryan to be president.
That's, yeah. Huh.
They really, their whole reasoning is we destroy him politically. We take away his opportunity to run for president by making a fool of him. And that's how we get where we're going.
Well, all right. I'm endorsing that.
I'm all for it, I tell you.
Yeah. Raul Labrador. I suppose, it would make great headlines and outreach type stuff, without actually doing anything. Look, Raul, come on. We're totally for you Hispanics. Let's have taco bowls.
Right. And here's the thing, they're in this odd little bubble of the House, doing their Freedom Caucusy thing, thinking they're running it all, thinking they're going to take over the Republican Party, as if there wasn't this whole other thing happening in the form of Donald Trump and Trumpism and a presidential election.
Yeah. Right. Well, they're not going to be able to just shove him aside, although maybe they're already looking ahead to his defeat and saying somebody is going to have to step up and be the successor leader of the Republican ultra-conservatives or something.
I think that's what they're thinking, but
yeah, it's not a bad idea.
They're also not paying attention to the fact that what Trump is doing is running to be just that.
Yeah. Do you think he has an interest in continuing rather than going back to primarily to his businesses?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
I think that he loves this. He loves the rallies. He's taking over a media outlet, such as it is. And I think his plan is to be a permanent fixture in our politics because he likes holding rallies. He loves the rallies. I
wonder what the excuse for rallies is. I mean, people can come up with excuses all the time. Glenn Beck, I'm going to have a rally in Washington. And I guess at any point, anybody with a microphone and a following can call a rally, and he can always bankroll it himself somehow, although increasingly it would become a problem at some point.
I'm not sure that he can bankroll it.
Yeah. I mean, anytime he wanted to do a press conference at Mar-a-Lago, he can swing that. Rallies, well, maybe. Well,
see, one of the things, though, has been a great new opportunity for grift.
Yes.
I'm still not entirely sure how his campaign paying him works. There's got to be money coming from somebody else.
Yeah. Well, he's paying, certainly the office rent thing. You saw that story.
Yeah.
That's when contributions came in volume, he just switched over to, instead of, in kind, I guess, donating his rent, or maybe I think they actually made payments because they were funneling cash back to the Trump organization. Now they just do it right out of the donations. But he's got some work to do on actually turning a profit out of it. But then again, that's par for the course with Trump organization projects. The fact that it's actually losing money doesn't make a great deal of difference.
Doesn't seem to faze him.
And somehow, I don't know, all these people, the richest people in the world, it seems, are constantly losing money on their business ventures. I really would love to know how this works. I'm losing money all the time. I would love to be a billionaire. I can't make this work. But that's the particular genius.
It's baffling how this happens.
Yeah. Well, you got to be willing to lie and have, I don't know. I guess that there is a certain amount of genius, certainly, in talking large banking institutions, for instance, into just giving you more big chunks of money when they know you're a terrible risk. So there is something going on upstairs.
Well, and, there are very few banks in the United States willing to do that anymore.
Right. Well, it's just Deutsche Bank, isn't it?
Isn't Deutsche Bank the only bank that will still work with him?
That's the one that always comes up, yeah. Why is that?
I think I read that somewhere, that no U.S. bank will actually loan to him anymore except for Deutsche Bank.
That is what I hear. But even then, I just can't understand why that is. I'm a terrible risk. Give it to me. I don't know. Well, okay. And so now Trump's headed to Mexico, and I still haven't figured out, is he going today or very soon?
He's going today, apparently, to the Secret Service's outrage.
Yeah.
Because these things sort of take time.
Right. And yet they're constantly training. So put it to use, guys. He's a businessman and he wants to execute. So he's going to go. So do we know details like where is he going to Mexico City? I've heard nothing about it, which of course.
Well, because it happened, sort of like overnight.
Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, there's no detail
let's see.
yet. But I gather
he's giving his big immigration speech today too.
so. He's doing both.
Yeah,
He's gonna give
apparently.
the speech. When's the speech?
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to put you on the spot. Nobody knows. It's out there somewhere, but no, who cares? When it's on, it's on.
This is the announcement. Donald Trump, I have accepted the invitation of President Enrique Peña Nieto. Nieto? I know, I'm using my Russian pronunciation. Of Mexico and look very much to meeting him tomorrow.
Yeah, sent from the iPhone.
And then he's going to go to Phoenix, where he delivers a major address on immigration. And I saw a tweet
Phoenix
that
after.
while he's going to Mexico for this,
Yeah.
his traveling press corps is being sent to Phoenix.
I guess there's no place for them in Mexico, or no guarantee they get back from Mexico. I'm not sure. Sounds like they're just depending on the Mexican government, ironically enough, for the logistics and security, and they probably said, I don't have any place to put your press. You leave them there, and we're having a private meeting anyway, I guess. But although, or maybe, who knows, the president of Mexico may have arranged it so that it's just Mexican press that's there. Because I can't imagine, what's the point of a private meeting with Donald Trump?
Well, and they say, there was another tweet saying, I don't know, the crazy campaign manager, is that what we call her?
Kellyanne Conway? She's
Yeah.
I think manager.
Supposedly they will take press questions. Kellyanne Poll says Trump will take questions in Mexico today.
They'll be in Spanish.
We don't know. Yes, they'll be in Spanish because the American press corps is all going to be.
This is going to be good.
Of course, educated Mexican people speak two languages, which is kind of.
But please, by all means, ask them in Spanish.
Ask them in Spanish. Yes,
I'd love to see. I'd pay a lot. No, I wouldn't. I'd be very pleased though to see some video footage of that, or Donald Trump trying to say "see," to them, or answer in his best Spanish. I mean, I assume that if they asked them in Spanish, they would have a translator. But more likely, if they really cared that he understand the question, and they might not, they will just ask them in English because they're better educated, bilingually speaking, than most Americans are.
Yes.
They can't speak Spanish, but they can speak pretty good English, and they will likely embarrass him with that. But I mean, I have no detail on. I assume he's going all the way to Mexico City to do this.
He's going to Mexico City,
and he
and
may not even get off the plane, for all I know.
Barb sends along this quote.
Okay. From
an article I do not see the link to. At least 2 protests were already being planned for downtown Mexico City, and Peña Nieto. Nieto?
Yeah, Nieto. You had that. Correct.
Okay. It's a little Russian sounding.
Yeah, not
his
Nieto,
office would not say exactly where or when the meeting would be held, possibly in a bid to avoid protests outside the meeting site.
Right.
And then the article concludes, Mexicans have already made and beaten to a pulp piñatas of Donald Trump. They created a video game in which players can throw soccer balls, cactus leaves, and tequila bottles at a cartoon image of Trump.
Had to be tequila bottles in there. He probably thinks that's funny. But okay. I mean, there are ways to do this. Logistically speaking, I did see some good comments made. This is not only to the great chagrin of the Secret Service, but I'm sure advance planners, if there are any, on the Trump campaign also likewise have nothing, can't have any idea what's going on. So it may just be straight to the Mexico City airport. They could, in fact, just have, I mean, if Trump was arranging the meeting, I'm sure he would just say the president of Mexico should meet me on my plane on the tarmac, and then I'm out of here. But I could see the jet landing there, and they get a limo from the Mexican government and go to the offices, and they meet, and who knows what happened. But I mean, handing over the logistics to the Mexicans is you would think would be worrisome to Trump. That's the sort of thing that he insists that they can't do properly.
You would think. Mark Murray tweets that the U.S. Embassy says don't come.
Yeah. Well, so did the governor of Louisiana, but they didn't listen to that. So, okay. Well, he's going to do it, and I really don't know. I'm very curious to find out what happens, mostly because I don't think, I can't imagine off the bat that the president of Mexico is interested in being accommodating of him, that he has some different motive or that he's going to confront him in some way, but I don't even really see what comes of that. Who knows? I just don't know enough about Mexican domestic politics to guess at what the president of Mexico has in mind.
Well, he did issue sort of the usual invitation to the candidates to come speak with him.
Okay.
I'm sure thinking, this isn't going to happen because,
they're busy.
He's busy and he
hates Mexico.
Has previously compared Trump to Hitler and Mussolini.
Right. Yeah.
So why would Trump want to come talk to me when I call him Hitler and Mussolini?
He might like it. I don't know. Okay, well, it's on you now, President, what did we say? His name was Peña Nieto.
Peña Nieto.
Yeah, it's both of those in there. Not just Nieto, I guess. But, okay. Well, this should be very interesting. So he goes there first and then Phoenix. So he'll have a crowd that will want to, I assume, hear him come and say that he's just been to Mexico and it's terrible. I can't imagine.
And he bended Peña Nieto to his will.
Oh, yes.
I'm sure we're going to hear some of that. But remember, this is his big immigration speech in which he is supposed to be softening.
I know that's been the rumor, but he hasn't.
We're supposedly today getting the final, real, clarified version of Trump's plan for immigration.
That seems unlikely. But
yes, because tomorrow's going to happen, and
wow. Well,
tomorrow Trump's going to have a whole nother idea on this, but
that's it's going to be damn interesting. There also the other speculation I heard, and it's a good one, I think, is that there's some chance that Trump, with or without actual basis in fact, might just exit the meeting and say, "Guess what? Mexico just offered to pay for the wall, and I accepted." And the Mexican president will say, "I did not," and sputter and stomp his feet and insist, "I said nothing of the kind." But for Trump, that won't matter, except for the fact that, as many people have pointed out, technically speaking, having this sort of diplomatic relations and planning going forward would be illegal for a private citizen to undertake on his own.
Yes, apparently Armando has pointed out that this would violate the Logan Act.
Yeah. So I suppose he'll want to keep an eye on that, although
yes.
I don't know whether he's the kind of guy who believes that he can get away with whatever he wants or just say
that
wasn't
what it was. Of course he does. And Tim Fernholz tweets that Trump's campaign staff actually thinks that Nieto is going to offer some policy concessions today.
Yeah, which would likewise be illegal and
right. But
there's some
Trump.
Yeah, there's some truth to the idea that he may say, "I know very well that it's illegal, but I guess I dare you to arrest me in the middle of a campaign," and think about the optics of that. Really, honestly, I'm thinking of what kind of reaction would that engender in the United States. Some people would certainly celebrate that, but there would be people who would view that as, this is exactly the kind of rigging we were talking about. He may be right. It is in a position to be able to shoot somebody on Fifth Avenue and say, you're going to have to delay the trial until after this election, right? You can't arrest me now. You can't arrest a presidential candidate in the middle of a campaign and not look like you're a banana republic. And I think in that sense, he may be right. So I'm a little worried.
Yeah.
Suppose there's a blatant violation. How well do they do on prosecuting people for violating the Logan Act? I don't know if I've ever seen it.
I've
No
never
one ever
seen
risks
it, but, you know.
I guess he should just try it.
Whoa. Confusion and dismay indeed.
Yeah. So, you know, there could be a major international diplomatic incident today, and we'll have.
I think
very
chances
few
are
tools.
pretty darn good there will be.
Yeah, I mean, that may be what
That's
the president
just
of
what we
Mexico
need.
wants.
It's August. It's slow.
Right.
Trump hasn't been making any good news.
No. Well, my advice to him on his trip to Mexico, stay hydrated. That's very important. Just whatever they have around by way of water, you just go right ahead, Donald. Get yourself a couple long, cool drinks and see what happens from there. Best advice I have for you. Stick with the local stuff. Don't go for any of that imported garbage. And things should be fine. I don't know. I'm not certain how this is going to go, but I guess, I'm very excited to watch and find out. And that should be a barn burner in Phoenix afterwards as he comes back and has to either live down any indignities that the Mexicans have heaped on him or double down on any indignities he's heaped on them.
Well, and you can watch that with us on the front page of Daily Coast because Mark Sumner,
I will.
the fantastic Mark Sumner, is going to be live blogging Phoenix's
Wow.
thing.
Whew.
Yeah.
Good luck to him. I hope he makes it through. Have a doctor nearby because I don't know what's going to come out of that guy's mouth. Not Mark. That I trust it. It's Donald Trump I'm worried about. Okay. So there's the Mexico trip. Gosh, what else is happening that's on your mind well, we still have a couple of minutes, but I don't know when they're going to come and grab you, snatch you out of here and make you work. But I'm scrolling down here. Let's see. Chuck
Relatively
Grassley's in your
soon
stories.
because we just got word that Chuck Grassley has created an attack ad against Patty Judge. So they're a little worried in Iowa.
Yeah.
They should be.
Okay. Well, I see he's in the list.
Yeah,
here.
I'm going to be senating a lot today.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, by the way, it's 199 days since Justice Antonin Scalia passed away.
Oh, well, okay. So, pretty soon they'll have a replacement, I'm sure. Maybe not on the 199th day, but surely by 200. No?
Maybe
Possibly
by, I don't know, the 300th day? Maybe.
Well, there's 69, 70 days left till the election.
Yeah.
After which, I guess there's still a little bit of time before the inauguration of the new president and the Congress is still in. But what's the status of Republican pushback against lame duck work of any kind? Have they not just judicial nominations, but I know a lot of people were saying we shouldn't be doing anything at all, and I don't know where that stands.
Well, on the House side, the Freedom Caucus says, no, don't do anything.
Right. Okay.
At least that's what they said last time I checked in. Who knows with the Freedom Caucus? They can turn on a dime, except for, the whole ousting speakers thing. That's a permanent fixture.
That's happening maybe even more frequently than every 2 years.
You really can't expect much to happen when they come back next week after next. I think it's next week on the 5th or the 6th.
Okay, right after Labor Day.
Because they're going to have to be spending a lot of time thinking about funding government.
Yes, that's
the usual.
All right.
So I don't know. And we've also, Roy Blunt says we've got to do something about Zika. Roy Blunt being in charge of the committee that would do something about Zika, and who is also facing a surprisingly strong challenge from Democrat Jason Kander. in Missouri. So, yeah, Roy Blunt thinks he needs to do something. And Mitch McConnell, wanting to keep Roy Blunt around, probably is going to be likely to allow him to do that.
All right.
Blunt likes the compromise that they came up with Democrats in the Senate that the House killed.
Oh.
So, how Zika funding is going to happen, we don't know for sure, but I think that that's what the Senate's going to be looking at. That and, funding government entirely.
Yeah, they may be okay with the House at this point. The focus has been elsewhere for so long that they could probably slip a Zika thing by.
I think so. Whether or not the Senate did come up with a compromise that did not defund Planned Parenthood. Whether the House would allow that to happen, we don't know.
Yeah, you can never tell. But okay. Well, that'll be the issue. Here's the Zika funding, and the issue will be Planned Parenthood. Great.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that makes a certain amount of sense for the House, anyway.
Armando helpfully tweets to us that the Trump speech is scheduled for 6-ish Eastern tonight.
The Phoenix speech.
The Phoenix speech.
Okay, so he's got all day to get down to Mexico and back.
Yeah.
All right.
Pacific, not Eastern.
Oh, 9 Eastern, so like a prime time, baby.
We have quite a discussion happening in our Twitter feed about whether or not it's 9 Pacific or 9 Eastern.
Yes. Well, okay, so it seems to be 9 Eastern. Does Mark know this?
Poor Mark.
Yeah. All right, well, that's not so late for him, but okay, so that puts it
Maybe
about
we
prime
won't be live
time-ish.
blogging. We'll see. We'll see. I think he's probably going to be live blogging, though, because this is could be a slightly big deal.
I hope Trump live tweets his meeting. I think live Twitter doesn't happen. I mean, it's proof. I don't believe you're actually meeting with the president of Mexico unless you tweet your thoughts without Kellyanne Conway on hand while it's happening. I would love to see it.
And we have confirmation, indeed, from one of the traveling press corps with Trump that they won't be there. They're in Phoenix.
Okay. So they'll be waiting patiently, maybe, for him to return from Mexico to tell them what happened and what he's going to do about immigration once and for all today. I can't imagine that this is final. They will say it, perhaps, but I can't imagine. I mean, how many deadlines has he missed already with, whether it's veterans campaign, the donation to the vets or the taxes or whatever. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do it. So, and then, of course, even if it is delivered today, it could just be different tomorrow. Whatever the applausometer says, that's what he'll be doing. All right. Well, let's see. The other thing I noticed that you chimed in on in the last couple of days, Paul LePage. that guy's crazy. We've been talking about him. He's as interesting
as Donald Trump, almost.
Yeah, well, he's very similar, and people have...
He got elected, so yeah, I guess.
Oh, okay. Yeah, well, that's a dissimilarity, but certainly, people have been pointing out that he would make a great example of... If you want to know what a Trump presidency would be about, Paul LePage is every bit as short-tempered and vindictive and egocentric
and racist.
And racist, right. Well, maybe not every bit as all of that stuff. But he's very similar to Donald Trump in that sense. They're very impulsive and has a hard time controlling himself. It's the sort of kid, in the classroom setting, you got to pull him aside every once in a while.
You could see LePage actually... LePage, sorry.
I don't know. I mean, do they do that? In some parts of Maine might say that.
You can see LePage actually hunting somebody down and punching him in the face, whereas Trump...
Yeah, that's true.
He's not going to do that.
Yeah, that's a possibility.
LePage would, I think, get physically violent.
He's a little more... Well, he doesn't have the buffer, hasn't grown up with the buffer of bodyguard, security men kind of thing.
Right.
That Trump has surrounded himself with. So maybe. But yeah, so I noticed that the headline of your piece here, pressure growing in Maine to make somebody do something about Paul LePage. Is there really something happening, or is my read on it has been all of the Maine politicians all looking around like, I don't want to be the one to do this. Somebody should, or is there a real movement going? Because they should be getting ready to just. They should just have impeachment papers ready to go and tell them that.
And Democrats in the legislature want that.
Yeah.
Republicans are thus far being kind of, yeah, this isn't good, but we'll talk about it later after we figure out what we're going to do. And since I wrote that yesterday, LePage, I'm sorry.
He
LePage,
might be okay with that. Yeah.
Said, well, maybe I'll leave, maybe I won't. It's all.
Yeah, he's not going to do that.
I have no idea. He's as bad as Trump.
Yeah. So he hints that
you just can't predict what's going to happen.
I saw this morning somebody was saying he was already backing off of the resignation thing, which doesn't surprise me at all.
No.
But yeah, they really, I mean, if they are at all self-respecting, I would think legislators, and there are plenty of Republicans who know that he's a danger and a liability to them in general, though I'm sure they would rather censure him than impeach him. But really, somebody just needs to have the papers ready to go and just say, give me a reason.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll hold them.
And there's plenty of reason. In fact, he did actually, this was the amazing thing. He apologized to the Democratic legislator that he left the threatening phone message for.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't
He
even
actually
know that.
apologized and sounded sincere.
Oh.
But then doubled down on all of the racist stuff. On all of our drug dealers and all of the people bringing in drugs to Maine are Hispanic and black.
Okay. I mean, did he not know that the legislator was white until afterwards or something? Is that what it was?
I don't know.
I'm sorry. I didn't realize you were white. The black people are still wrong. But I don't know. Okay, well, I don't even know. I don't know what kind of credit, if any, zero, really, to give him for apologizing to this guy. But, okay. But he's still racist, and that's still a problem. And
he still has a big mouth. And that's, unfortunately, for Maine Republicans, the bigger problem.
Yeah. And
you can be a racist, just do it quietly.
Certainly, Republicans feel that way. And traditionally, it has not been an impeachable offense by itself to be even racist. Although, who knows how much tolerance there is left for that kind of outright racism. But he keeps insulting and intimidating and threatening legislators, which is a terrible strategy for someone who doesn't want to be impeached.
Right. Well, and he keeps vetoing bills. He's not allowing them to do anything.
Right. Yes, I recall that there were some very highly questionable types of vetoes and things that he insisted he had vetoed, which I don't even remember how that came out. And most legal experts said you didn't veto it. And I guess he just gave in on some of that stuff.
I think he did give in on some of it. But, he's delayed seating legislators in special elections because he doesn't like them. He's just...
He's flirting with disaster for himself.
What would happen if we had Donald Trump as president.
Yeah, I think so. And it would be, 100 times worse just because of how much more is at stake and how much more power there is.
Or at least 50 times worse.
Yeah, well, that's true. To put a finer point on it. I count the multipliers of worseness by the members of the Senate sent by the states.
There you go. There you go.
So that's what it is, really. I guess in an impeachment sense, context, that makes a certain amount of sense. I don't know how many people are in the Senate, the state Senate in Maine, though. Probably like 6
I don't either. I haven't checked that out.
It's a small place, population-wise. Although, so's New Hampshire, and look what they did. 700,000 people.
I just don't understand. But, hey, if it works for you, New Hampshire. Oh, by the way, in case, people didn't know, John McCain won his primary last night.
Oh, how How did he do? I mean, winning. What was the margins?
That I don't know. I just got the tweet that.
Oh, okay. Well, I didn't know, but I figured that he probably had. I would imagine that would have been a lot hotter news had he lost.
Had he not, yeah.
But okay, as expected, I would think. And so, not yet renouncing Trump either. I see.
Not yet.
Okay.
Sticking with Trump. We'll see how that works for him in the general election.
Right. Okay. Well, we'll see. But
and to leave off my little, since we started with Paul Ryan, let's end with John Boehner for my segment this morning.
Okay.
In case you missed it, go find the video he put on YouTube of him driving his RV. Very
happily. I rolled
happily.
by and I didn't click, but okay. Is he having a good time?
John Boehner's having a good time. The fact that he's putting his vacation, his driving his RV out there on YouTube the same day that the Freedom Caucus is plotting the ouster of Paul Ryan, I think tells you something about how happy John Boehner is with his decisions in life.
Yeah, okay. Well, he's another one of those guys that I really feel a lot better about in retirement.
Yes.
I actually enjoy him a great deal now that he's got no bearing on my life. And it's fun. All right, I will check that out, and we'll share that with listeners in the if I can grab it in the post there, because if it comes that highly recommended, I'm sure everyone will want to see it. Okay. Well, thanks, Joan. I know you got a lot ahead of you today. It's an exciting day, though.
It's always an exciting day at Daily Kos.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's plan. Why don't we plan to do this again?
Let's.
Okay. Like next week or so would be a
good
time
idea.
For that.
Good idea.
And we'll expect you then. Yeah, I have to try and pull the same stunt with Josie one of these days, and if I can get her on once, we think we can turn her into a regular.
She's on vacation this week, so
well,
she was so excited by last night in Florida that she had to break her vacation to write for us about Angela Corey and Jeff Ashton.
Okay, that's big news there. Yeah, okay, that probably explains
she's on vacation.
We were trying to arrange these things while I was on vacation, and then she went on vacation. This whole vacation thing. Now Boehner's on vacation. I mean, how does anything get done?
Meanwhile, I didn't get much of an August.
No?
Well. Stupid Donald Trump.
Yeah, well, okay. Post-election, everybody can take off. Maybe. I don't know. How about you? Just you.
Thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving?
I'm taking a week after Thanksgiving,
That's
so
a good idea.
I have to wait till then.
Okay. Well, you'll hang on and dream of turkey until then. Thanks so much for coming by and sharing all these stories, and good luck with the coverage of the Paul Ryan thing. I guess we got some time on that, so that's good.
At least I have some fun in my life.
Right. You and John Boehner.
Right. Me and John Boehner.
You should both go in the
Gleefully
RV.
watching Paul Ryan suffer.
Now that's a buddy movie I think I can get backing for. Go on the road with John Boehner.
Get on that one.
Okay. I have such pull with big money people.
Yeah.
All right. Take care, Joan. Thanks so much. And we'll be looking for you on the front pages of Daily Kos.
You are most welcome. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye. Joan McCarter, senior political writer there at Daily Kos. And so she'll be pulling up a chair on the big platform and covering the news of the day. All eyes on Donald Trump as he heads westward. And so does the president, by the way. I saw that news fly by very recently on Twitter. Headed to Nevada, is that right? To do an event with Harry Reid, who's not running for re-election. So I'm not sure. Here we are. POTUS boarded Air Force One quickly today. That's the way you want to board Air Force One, if you ask me. As he heads west, first stop Reno for Senator Reid Clean Energy Summit. That would be the reason behind that. That's a big plane, that Air Force One. It's bigger and more better than the Donald Trump plane. And so there you go. That'll drive Donald Trump up the wall. Okay, and a couple of notes at the same time, if I'm following along correctly. Armando lets me know behind the scenes on a couple of our issues. One, the meeting between Donald Trump and President Peña Nieto of Mexico is in Los Pinos. It says, well, I assume that's an N there and that you didn't have the tilde rapidly available. Otherwise, it's Los Pinos, which is a considerably worse sounding name for the Mexican White House than Pinos, but who knows? I'll look it up. That's how I've never looked that up. What is the name of the executive mansion in Mexico? I guess now I'm intrigued. We can call it being intrigued. I don't need to be in the news version of Google. Executive. Do they call it the executive mansion there? I mean, is it official residence? Okay, Mexico. Oh, let's see. Wikipedia. Does it have the official? This is an entry for official residences of the heads of state everywhere. Does that leave it to Wikipedia to do things this way? All right, I'll scroll down. I'll buy now. I'll bite. I've already committed to this. No, is it not in here? Am I okay? Am I missing things? Why is it not there? I'm going alphabetically. All right, there we go. Mexico. Well, it says Pinos. Is that it? Yeah, not Pinos. Well, okay. There you go. Los Pinos. What does that mean? Who wants to give me a translation of that? The Pines. So, okay. That's sensible enough. Were there once pines there? Okay. Los Pinos. Enjoy your trip, Mr. Trump, I guess. 2.2. There has never been a Logan Act prosecution. There you go. That's why I can't think of any. But there's never been for what Clinton was investigated for either. Okay, very interesting. That too. Never been a Logan. See, and there won't be a Logan Act prosecution. And my guess is that even if Trump blatantly violates the Logan Act, they just don't have the machinery to gear up. It's a difficult thing to do and a difficult thing to do politically speaking. I think he may even be smart enough to know that, or someone in the campaign does, and they basically say, why don't we dare them to try and do that? That would be, I mean, I'm sure for his supporters, nothing could be more exciting than for him to come out of Mexico with a basis in reality or not, to then allege that concessions had been made, and they would wildly celebrate those concessions, whether or not they had been made, and then for the United States government under the leadership of the evil socialist Kenyan Muslim dictator Barack Obama to then charge Donald Trump with Logan Act violations. I mean, you don't have to take the guy into custody to actually prosecute him for that, but the idea of actually actively prosecuting him for it, that's ridiculous. There's no context for that. There's no historical precedent for it. Obviously, there's no precedent at all for prosecuting anyone under the Logan Act, much less a guy who's actively running for president as the major party nominee. And even if they waited until after the election, there really is no historical precedent for this. And I think he knows it, and I think it's just one of those crimes that at a certain, like most crimes, at a certain level, you can just get away with it because it's just incomprehensible both to the political sphere and the media sphere to contemplate the idea of a major party nominee or even former nominee under indictment and actually actively being prosecuted for something like that, particularly something for which we have no previous understanding of the nature of the crime and the nature of the way you would have to prosecute such a thing. It would be outrageous, and it would be a most amazing thing and a most amazing fit for people like the alt-right to basically say, why don't we thumb our nose in the face of authority and dare them to do something about this, because they won't, and then we'll have all the cuck headlines you'd ever want. So that'll be my bold prediction. Outside of the other bold prediction, which is that the meeting just wouldn't come off, that one I have my doubts about. That one I think the Mexican government absolutely can pull something like that off if they want to. It's just a matter of, now it would be a matter of wondering whether the press will remain open and or will ever be receptive to the idea that, hey, this is a major blunder by the Trump campaign, outsourcing this kind of logistics to the Mexican government, which they insist. I mean, after all, the whole theory of building the wall is that the Mexican government is inept on the issue of controlling its side of the border and providing security and keeping crime and related activities under control there. But I'll trust my personal safety to them. So I don't know how he's going to deal with that, and I have very little faith that they would be able to pick up such a nuanced storyline and remain interested in it and make anybody else interested in it. But hey, you never know. I could be surprised every day. So I do think the meeting will come off. But yeah, my bold prediction of it, I guess, is that he'll insist on telling people that something happened there that would very obviously be a violation of the Logan Act, and that he'll just be daring somebody to do something about it. There'll be lots of think pieces about how it obviously is a violation of the Logan Act, but nothing in the way of action and proving that it is a violation, or proving even that anyone in officialdom believes it's a prosecutable violation of the Logan Act. I think, and we're just going to have to leave it there, and we will leave it there. As a matter of fact, not just on that issue, but on the show itself, because it's time to hand the microphones over to the guys who bring you the after show every day. And now you get to find out on today's Wednesday's Child is Full of Whoa version of the after show, just what else was out there that I left unmentioned. And this is how they'll sum things up today. How about this story? A South Carolina teacher humiliates a black first grader by throwing away her shoes, as punishment for fidgeting, which is an awful crime, really. A Chicago area teacher, all about teachers today, who punished students for speaking Spanish, resigns in disgrace. We're trying hard to teach kids to speak Spanish. You can't do that. And, well, she's not anymore. He or she has resigned in disgrace. And a Texas coach, which is kind of like a teacher, threatens to ban the high school's only black cheerleader over her braids, because no one hates braids more than the audiences of cheerleading events. I guess you tell me what that's supposed to be about. She doesn't have white enough hair, obviously, is what's going on. For the last half, they'll be reporting that Iceland, one of my favorite places, is forced to unearth the enchanted Lady Stone to appease angry elves. I told you about those damn elves. And a historian explains how the September hex has brought disaster for presidents and presidential candidates.
From Daily Kos Radio on networksradio.com. You have been listening to the Kagro in the Morning Show
with David Waldman.
Wow, well, we'll see. What is this September hex? I have not heard of this one. Maybe it's when you inaccurately predict the October surprise. We'll find out. You'll find out all about that, plus all of what's on the Connect, Unite, Act Daily Kos community calendar, plus more on the after show with Wink and Justice, coming up as it does right after this every day.